I recently had the opportunity to travel to Japan after over a decade. I had always intended to return, but part of me was kind of afraid to. I was afraid of being judged for looking Japanese, but not being Japanese enough. I know it doesn't really make sense, but insecurities often don't. I was embarrassed for not knowing the language or culture at a level of fluency. I'm ethnically Japanese, but was born and raised American. My parents are from America. My father's parents are too. I'm neither Nisei nor Sansei. I don't really know what I am, and I guess I'm still figuring that out. I told myself that I would return to Japan once I learned Japanese, that somehow learning the language would make me feel like I was Japanese enough. My monolingualism wasn't to the fault of my parents, who enrolled me in several language learning courses throughout my life, but due to my own lack of desire to learn. It wasn't until this year that I became more interested in language learning, motivated by the booking of my flight. I don't know what caused me to finally decide to book my flight. Maybe it was out of a desire to know myself better and to get out of my comfort zone. More likely, though, it was the weekend yen. Either way, I was both looking forward to my trip and also full of anxiety. I'd be meeting my family again and staying with them in the town my bachan grew up in. I was worried about how they'd view me and if we'd be able to communicate well enough. I didn't know what to expect or if we'd be able to connect. Japanese culture was instilled in me from a young age through the celebrations of many Japanese holidays like Obon, Girls' Day, and Oshogatsu. My Jichan was the minister of our local Buddhist church, so Buddhism was also a part of my upbringing. I'm really thankful to have had those experiences and to have been part of a community of other people who look like me in a mostly Caucasian town. It wasn't until I traveled to Japan for the first few times, however, that I realized just how different I was from those born and raised in Japan. Shoes off in the house was a cultural norm I had adopted early on in life, but when it came to overwhelming politeness, bowing while talking on the phone in crowded subways during rush hour, I felt like a fish out of water. Though I have fond memories of those early trips to Japan, like feeding the deer in Nara, eating onigiri at the konbini, and meeting my bachan's friends and families, adulthood, COVID, and insecurity kept me from returning. This year, though, I had a desire to reconnect with my family and see parts of Japan that I never got to experience before. I made the decision with my partner that we'd stay with my family for a few days, and we planned out our dream vacation. I can't really speak on the credibility of language learning apps, but I downloaded Duolingo too, and eventually we left for Japan with a 200-day streak and a dream. The day we met my family, we got lost in the train station. Frantic and frazzled, I looked up how to tell them that I was lost, but instead told them that I lost something. They knew what I was trying to say, though, and eventually we found each other. Our conversations were kind of like that. Me grasping, trying to find the right words to say, them looking up how to say different words in English using different translation apps. They took us to lunch at a kushikatsu place in Osaka. And that's when my aunt looked at me and said, "Enryo shinaide." There's not really a direct translation of this phrase, but it's something along the lines of don't hold back or don't feel bad for imposing. It's something ingrained in Japanese culture, to hold back, to be courteous, and to not ask for things out of politeness. However, hearing that phrase instantly brought me relief. Maybe I was holding back without realizing it, but it reminded me that despite our differences, we're family, and we'll be there for one another, no matter the distance or how long the time we spent apart. It gave me the courage to open up and to be curious, and most importantly, to not be so afraid of being wrong, because chances were that I would be wrong most of the time. Unexpectedly, spending time with my family in Wakayama made me feel closer to my bachan. My uncles and aunts would reminisce about her and my Jichan. They would talk about where she was born and how much he liked to drink. They would show me photos from their many albums, and we'd laugh at the weird poses and fashion sense. It was healing in a way to be able to talk about my bachan. The last time I was in Japan, I was with her, but at least I could share stories with my relatives and talk about her this time around. Saying goodbye was really hard. I cried multiple times, which honestly didn't really surprise me. I am but a sensitive soul and a Pisces sign after all. As I waved to my aunt and cousin from inside the Shinkansen, I thought about how lucky I was to have such a kind family who did nothing but take care of us and make sure that we were very, very well fed. Though my time in Japan was short, I feel like I learned a lot about myself. Not only am I terrible with directions, like insanely terrible, but I also realized that two things can be true at the same time. I'm Japanese. I'm American. I'm uniquely Japanese American. And within the Japanese American community, there is culture and there is history. I'm lucky to be a part of that community, and most of all, lucky to be me because I am Japanese enough.
電車は指定席の特急列車です。ご利用には乗車券の他に列島指定